Hey, boys and girls, it's Mr. Mac. Today we're going to work on Module 15, Lesson 3, which is assessing reasonableness of products. So we're going to be doing some estimating today so that we can decide if an answer is reasonable or not. Does it make sense? Could this answer really be the answer, or are you just way off? It's a really great tool to use always to try and make sure that your answer makes sense. So we're going to start off with a couple different examples on this page. It says I can assess the reasonableness of products of a decimal less than one and a whole number. So we're talking about decimals and wholes. We're going to be dealing with what we're going to refer to today as benchmark decimals. A couple benchmark decimals that we deal with would be 25 hundredths, 50 hundredths, 75 hundredths, and one whole. All right, so we're really going to focus on these as our benchmarks today. So if you hear me say benchmark decimals, these are the numbers that we're going to be talking about. So this example, it says Rosalind School's holding a math fun fair. One of the games is a sorting game with the numerical expression shown. Sort the numerical expression. So we have two lists here. We have greater than 4 and we have less than 4. So we're going to look at some of these numbers to try and figure out which one is greater than and which one is less than. That's very simply put. So we're looking at 8 times 45 hundredths first. Okay, something we need to understand about 45 hundredths. 45 hundredths is close to 50 hundredths. 50 hundredths really is the same as saying a half. So if we have 8 times 45 hundredths, and we're talking about estimating, we're going to think of that as 8 times 50 hundredths. And if we're cutting 8 in half, because that's what multiplying by 50 hundredths does, that gives me 4. Okay, well, good. We want to know if this is greater than 4 or if this is less than 4. So what we need to look at is our estimate here and say, okay, if we were to increase 50 hundredths, then that means our answer would be greater than 4, right? Well, we had 45 hundredths, which means we decreased 50 hundredths. So our answer is actually going to be less than 4. So that first problem, 8 times 45 hundredths, is going to go in the less than 4 category. All right. So again, since we multiplied by less than 50 hundredths, our answer is going to be less than 4. If multiplied by greater than 50 hundredths, our answer would be greater than 4. The next example, we have 8 times 6 tenths. Well, the same thing we're thinking here, right? We have 8 times 6 tenths. Okay. 6 tenths is greater than 50 hundredths. Okay. So our answer is going to be greater than 4 again. So now it's going to be greater than 4. All right. So 8 times 6 tenths is greater than 4. Okay. Now, these examples so far that we've used have all been to the halves, right? But when we start to get a little bit further along, we just did this one. So we're looking at 6 times 81 hundredths. 6 times 81 hundredths. Okay, we would take that 81 hundredths, and we would say, okay, well, 6 times 81 hundredths is close to 75 hundredths, which would be 3/4. Okay, so now we're really saying, okay, 6 times 3/4. And for this example, right, so 3/4 is a tough one because we don't know what 3/4 of 6 is necessarily. So what I like to do is I like to say, okay, well, let's round 81 hundredths down to 50 hundredths, and let's also round it up to one whole. Well, 6 times 1 is going to give me 6, but then 6 times 50 hundredths, okay, that would be a 3. So we still don't know if our answer is going to be greater than 4 or less than 4. But what I like to think of now at this point is, okay, is 81 hundredths closer to one whole or is it closer to 50 hundredths? And 81 hundredths is closer to one whole. So since that estimate would give me a 6, I know that 6 times 81 hundredths would be greater than 4. Okay, so that's the third one there. So really, that's what we're doing with this lesson, and is using the estimating to find is it going to be greater than or less than a certain number. So again, for this one, 8 times 52 hundredths. Okay, 52 hundredths is greater than 50 hundredths. Okay, half of 8 is 4. So if we're increasing greater than half of 4, half of 8, that means it's going to be greater than 4. So 8 times 52 hundredths would also be greater than 4. All right, I'm not going to do all of the examples in this chart, but again, 8 times 8 times 8 tenths is close to 8 times 1, which is 8, which is definitely greater than 4. 4 times 99 hundredths. This is a fun one to look at because 99 hundredths is close to 1. And we know that 4 times 1 equals 4. But this is less than 1, so it would be less than 4. Okay? Again, same idea here. We know that 8 times 50 hundredths is 4. So 8 times a number less than that would be less than 4. And then this one, 4 times 9 tenths. Again, 9 tenths is close to a whole, but it's less than a whole. So 4 times less than 1 is going to be less than 4. All right, so just kind of keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out if an answer is reasonable or not. That 50 hundredths is half of a number, and then obviously 1 whole is the exact same number. All right, I hope these help you out. I know that the 3/4 and the 75 hundredths can be a little bit confusing. We'll go over it in class, but also hopefully this video, you watch it again, it might be able to clear it up for you a little bit. All right, good luck on 15-3, guys.